But something I think that's really key, as opposed to telling them what to do, it's asking them what they can do themselves. So if I give you more autonomy in your approach and your control back into your hands, because like people will say, I'm going to empower you in your health and fitness. All coaches will say that, and then they'll give people a food plan. It's like you've completely disempowered the person, for fuck's sake. It's like, it's like you're not.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Dave Hartrey podcast. So today we have a very exciting guest. We have Larry Doyle. So Larry, welcome to the show. I suppose starting off, would you like to just give us a little background on yourself and who you are and where people can find you?
Dave, what's up, mate? It's a pleasure to be on and to be one of the early guests too as well with your podcast. I know it's going to be a good success. Myself, I'm an online coach based in sunny southeast in Wexford. Been coaching for 17 years, been online kind of exclusively for the last 4 to 5. It's getting a bit blurry now at this stage. Kind of with the rinse and repeat with it. I've got a background, kind of came from sporting background, got into personal training, worked in Dublin, got into some bodybuilding, competed for a few years, came back down home to Wexford, living a little bit of a different lifestyle now in terms of a little bit more calm and relaxed and a little bit more realistic, I guess, as well too. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Brilliant. So take me back to the early years, say before you got into personal training, that you mentioned you were sporty. What kind of sports did you play when you were younger, and how did you transition from that to personal training?
Pretty much all sports, right? Because I was not academic in any way, shape, or form. So I would have played whatever I could just to get out of class, right? I wasn't a doctor, wasn't a master, but I just was interested in sport, and I wasn't all that interested in study. I'm not going to be one of those, don't study, don't do your thing, and don't go to school. Like, do all that. That's really important for everyone. But I played soccer, played hurling, played rugby, played football, played everything. Rugby would have kind of been my main sport I would have played, less just gap fillers. Played to a pretty high level with youths and stuff like that. So I played with Leinster youths. That actually is what got me into the personal training world. So I've... long story with my shoulder, a lot of injuries with that, a lot of issues with that. So I was getting that fixed up, getting that looked at. And a guy who I was fortunate enough to get introduced to was a very good strength coach, but also an excellent physiotherapist as well too. So I was like 17, 18. He knew I was into the whole fitness thing. He knew I was into training, had a look over my stuff, and he's like, what are you doing? Like, it's just way too much. This is why you're injured. This is why you're hammered. This is why you broke up. So he put me onto Charles Poliquin. So I started looking up some of Charles Poliquin's stuff, start studying his things, start getting very interested in it. Done a couple of his courses then through the introduction that I was given with that. And that kind of stemmed into me working into like local leisure centers and kind of getting a lot of hands-on experience dealing with like hundreds of people who were coming in every week, literally just programming for free, it's like the old school way of getting into it, but this is how I kind of, I guess, earned my stripes in terms of like dealing with a lot of bodies on the floor with a lot of hands-on experience. Got qualified, got a little bit more interested in, start taking on a couple more people, again for free at this stage, like, because I was just training people. I was getting paid like £7 an hour or something like that to work the floor, but like it was massive experience from that point. Then start bridging into a few more things, eventually moved away to Australia with the intentions of becoming a personal trainer out there. That completely fell on its face after about 4 weeks. Came home with my tail between my legs, moved up to Dublin, got into the personal trainer world from there. So kind of that's where it's kind of stemmed from, with the sporting side, getting into that from that point of view.
Brilliant. And I think that's kind of the path for a lot of people, in the sense that I was the same when I was in school, never really big into studying, but it's when you come out and you kind of find something you're interested in, and when you start actually learning about it, then you might not have thought you were ever a studious person before, and it turns into, going completely the other way with it. So I think for a lot of people, like kind of breaking into the industry with online coaching, it's very different now than what it was before. I think COVID kind of pushed everyone from, a lot of people from the gym floor, say, to online. Do you find it's, say, what do you think of the industry now in terms of, say, people getting started with online coaching? And like, I would imagine it's very different now compared to a few years ago when you started.
Yeah, so like a lot of people were kind of slingshotted through no fault of their own, really, like into kind of a very progressive era with the industry because where people may have just been starting out, getting onto the gym floor. So let's say me, for example, if I was starting out 3 years ago, okay, I get my first 6 months done, and now all of a sudden there's no gym for me to go to. I can't physically go to work. I'm not saying someone should go into being an online coach from that point, but it is something that kind of people are like, well, I'm really into this. This is my career and my chosen path that I want to go down or want to explore. Now, what do I do? So you have a lot of people who were potentially in that era of kind of earning their stripes or whatever, and they got slingshotted into it. Is it the right thing to do? No, it's not. I don't think so. And I'll still stay by that all the time. Is there some very successful coaches who have kind of done that avenue and done that without getting hands-on? Yes, but I think they're just successful through numbers as opposed to their actual maybe knowledge or understanding of the actual whole thing. Because when you're dealing with people and it's called personal training, when you remove the personal aspect of it, it's now not personal training anymore, right? You're just dealing with emails, you're dealing with WhatsApps, you're dealing with apps, you're dealing with everything. And it's actually removed the ability for the coach to get hands-on, to get in person with them, to really get to know the people. And when you have kind of a skill set of being able to communicate with people and being able to actually understand and being able to have that face-to-face conversation, now you can get to know people much better. And this is a huge aspect that's missing in that career for people. Now, a lot of people will say again, you know, to the other point that like the industry is saturated and there's too many personal trainers and everyone's an online coach now at the minute and all this. Obesity stats are still overwhelmingly in the wrong side of things, right? So we're not winning that battle. So I don't think we're doing a great job from that point, even if it is saturated or not. You know, and that's something else we could look at and have a different discussion on. I think it's a whole different podcast altogether. But like, you know, when we look at this element of online coaching and where that's going, I think it's a very, very different era for sure now.
Yeah, yeah. And do you find that, say, people who are looking at online coaching from the outside are getting kind of like a skewed perception of kind of what's involved in it because of so many people are kind of jumping into it before, as you said, getting hands-on the gym floor and getting to know people? I think even just like being able to see people train in person has a huge carryover into being able to spot it in videos and stuff. And, you know, it's leaving people with kind of a bad kind of thought on online coaching and stuff. Do you find that with your clients?
Yeah, like, so isn't the age demographic, I guess, that we deal with are a little bit different because of like like is going to attract like, right? So I'm in my mid-30s, mid to late 30s now, I call it. But it's like I'm not going to attract the 20-year-old client, right? We do get some very young clients, but again, who's this old fart with his beard? You know, that's not what we're about, kind of thing. So I won't attract as many of the younger ones in. But where I guess the biggest downfall is with a lot of that is that they're seeing like radical transformations, or they're seeing like, you know, someone who's done their own photo shoot or their own prep or whatever it may be, and now all of a sudden, you know, oh, it's such a great prep, 16 weeks, got shredded, won a medal, I'm now taking on clients. And this is what you see people transitioning into. And that's a major problem, because now what you have is someone with their own experience, purely from their own, that was probably coached whatever way. They'll copy and paste that template and they'll just pass it back out to as many people as they can get their hands on, right? And that's majorly problematic as well too, because now you've people who are just wanting to get healthy and they're getting very unhealthy because they're just getting thrown under the bus and like, oh, you should do a shoot, you know, you should do a prep, you should do whatever. And that's problematic. But then coming back to what you mentioned about then, if I go off on tangents, just put me back in straight away as well too. So
work away.
But when you were talking about like that coaching aspect, and this is where like a lot of the coaches haven't actually been coached themselves, right? So they've just got into it because again, well, I like fitness, I like training, so I might as well make a career out of it. But they don't actually understand or comprehend what does go into it to make it a really overall greater experience for the individual, because they've never actually experienced that themselves. So that's another like big aspect that's a bit of a failure on the industry, I guess, now at the moment. But because it's not regulated, it's a bit of the Wild West. So, you know, it can go really anyway from that point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really do see that, I think, with people coming in and, as you said, they get into competing themselves or do a photo shoot or whatever. And then I suppose when you do start online coaching, you need to deal with Gen Pop clients to start off. And people are coaching these Gen Pop clients like bodybuilders or people who are, you know, going to do photo shoots or whatever, and I feel like it's leaving people with a very poor relationship with food or with training or an outlook on the gym, because it's this all or nothing lifestyle from the start. But anyways, taking it back to, you mentioned you competed. How did you find breaking away from being a bodybuilder, like, you know, being associated with bodybuilders, to Gen Pop now?
Yeah, so I guess my own journey through bodybuilding was very, very different to what most people will have. As in, I have a very good experience with it. I had a very good relationship with it before and after. I've seen kind of both sides of the coin, and you know, that's, I guess, something that probably brought me away from bodybuilding that little bit more, is that I just wasn't enjoying it. It wasn't something that it used to be for me, and it was going this very different avenue and route. And it was just something that I just didn't really want to be a part of anymore, because it was now becoming purely kind of social media and pharmacology warfare and everything else that comes with it all as well too, right? But my own transition, like, people, like, I was prepping a couple of people for shows. I wasn't by any means a prep coach. I was probably considered one, but I wasn't, because it was, again, quite small at the time in Ireland. And that's who would have been kind of coaching, was more Irish athletes. But the majority of, like, 99.9% of the people I was coaching were normal people. So I was coaching Gen Pop all the time, even throughout my own bodybuilding career as well too, right? So from that point, it was like, it was a relatively easy transition, because I understood those people. And I guess that's a big misunderstanding as well too. A lot of people, well, I'm into it, so, you know, I'm going to get all these other people who are into it. Much like when I qualified initially, right, from doing like the Polkwan style stuff, this was all about like training athletic populations. And we were all like, yeah, I'm qualified now to train athletes. Where's my Olympians? And it's like, I still haven't, I've trained one or two athletes, and I've trained a few people who have gone to the Olympics, but like, that's like just through different channels. It wasn't actually through being, you know, with that. So again, much like that, when people, like, they're into shows or preps or whatever, and they think that's just who they're going to be coaching, 99% of your clientele are still going to be ordinary people. Because when you look on the street, it's like, that's many athletes you see walking around, and many competitors in any sport are like higher end disciplines. It's a very, very small minority as well too, you know. So like that transition of like being able to manage that and coach those people, are kind of transitioning back into that, my lifestyle myself. It was an interesting one, because where I would have been very involved in, obviously, the bodybuilding lifestyle, I still lived a pretty normal lifestyle, but it now gave me a far greater understanding of what the normal person was doing, because I was doing more normal things as well. And I think that, like, in the last while, only to very recently becoming a dad, has allowed me to understand things far better from the Gen Pop's perspective as well too. Like, even though, okay, we understand that we've talked and we've trained hundreds and up to thousands of people now at this point who have lived those normal lives, it's not till they actually walk a mile in their shoes till they fully understand that as well too. And that's a major disconnect, I think, we're coaches too from that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think it is very easy, especially with kind of beginners, as I was kind of talking about earlier on, people getting into the industry. You know, if you're an online coach or working from home, you have your whole day to yourself. You can go to the gym when you want. You can make your meals when you want. It is very easy to get quite disconnected from what actually goes on in normal people's lives. And I suppose being able to understand that is such a huge part of online coaching, that because you need to be able to connect with the people and kind of understand their struggles to be able to help them, you know. And do you ever miss coaching competitors, or do you much prefer like just doing the Gen Pop now?
No, I don't, like, I don't miss it at all, because they're in it again for different reasons. Like, I had a couple of experiences with some clients, and like, they went through the most outrageous transformations, both mentally and physically, right? They were absolutely amazing. And like, these were competitors, but then they get to the show and it's like, oh, I came second, I'm disappointed. It's crap. It's shit. It's this, it's that, it's the other. And it's like, we do you realize what you've actually done? You know, and like, you know, they come out of it as a bad experience, because they're only looking for the validation of winning or whatever. It's not about the whole process for them. And they'll talk about the process, but they won't actually, you know, actually love the process. It's purely the outcome that they're looking for. So for me to put someone through either a shoot or put someone through a prep like that, you know, they have to be in it for the right reasons. And I would still prep one or two people from that point of view. And like, literally just this morning, I posted a client of mine who has done a photo shoot. those photos from that shoot will never see the light of day. And because I know that the type of person that he is, he will not post them because he didn't want to do it for the external validation of other people saying good job and whatever. He actually was quite hesitant about me posting on that as well too, but we got his permission and he's okay with it because it's nice to showcase that journey of someone else who's doing that. But when a lot of people are in it just in these preps or competition preps, that they're not in it for the right reasons, and this is why I just don't enjoy doing it from that point of view, you know.
I feel like something I was kind of thinking about the other day is the term that's been tossed around on Instagram quite a lot now, or any social media, is kind of like know your why. And while it is very important, at the same time, I feel like people feel if people don't actually understand what it is, or, you know, in that particular time in their life, they feel like they have to have a why and they have to have something to put all this like focus and attention on. And it's kind of getting people to do things for the wrong reasons, if that makes sense. Feeling like that, you know, they're looking at Instagram and all these people are going off and doing it, and, you know, why can't, or, you know, I'm not doing anything with my life, so I should probably, you know, try and do something. And yeah, as you said, like just getting into it for the wrong reasons. Like looking back on my kind of journey, I suppose I probably got into it for the wrong reasons, and I didn't realize that for a long time. And I think it did, like, I suppose mine kind of started happening when lockdown came and I lost my job. And then that's when I fully like engulfed myself in bodybuilding, because there was nothing else at the time that I felt like I could put my time and attention to. And I felt like I had to have a why, as you said. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
The why aspect is interesting as well. And it's something that I'll dig into people. And the second someone comes to me and looks for a prep or looks for a shoot, I kind of like pull on what I call like the 7 whys. So I'll give them the first why. It's like, okay, why are you interested in? I'll just kind of tiptoe around it. I'm like, oh, it's me versus me, and I like the idea of competing and blah blah blah, whatever. You know, seeing a friend do it, and then I'll say, okay, why again? And then I'll say, well, you know, it's you know, kind of I want to push myself, and, you know, it's a great challenge. And then I'll say, okay, why again? And then I'll just keep going, why, and then it turns down. By the time you get to like the 6th, 7th, 8th why, there's a completely different reason or completely different underlying rationale as to why. Next thing is because, well, I was bullied when I was younger and I've got really low self-esteem, or my ex does bodybuilding and I want to get back at them, or there's some like ridiculous reason for it. And this is like a lot of things that people are using extremes as a bit of a coping mechanism for maybe some void that was there in their life, or maybe because they don't want to go work through maybe some therapy or counseling or whatever it might be, that they do these things and they kind of feel that they have to have like this almost punishment on them. And we're not saying everyone with a bodybuilding is into that, and not everyone has a huge deep dark secret as to why they're on stage. But a lot of it is because they will lean towards those extremes. And this is like something that will attract those extremes as well. So when you can, this is like come back to that coaching experience as well, where it's like you start to dig in that little bit deeper and you actually get to know the people and why they're doing what they're doing and what's the major driver behind that. And it's again, like when you look at like the why stuff, and, you know, Simon Sinek was the guy who started all that, to know your why and start with why and all these things. But like when you start to dig in deeper and start to really ask people questions and get to know them better, now you know why, or what the actual driver is behind that with that individual. And most often it's the case that it's not what they actually initially came for or what they initially said. So this is where maybe like some consultations or like a brief conversation doesn't really dig into it enough for people to get to know that person enough. And when you don't have enough of those difficult conversations, as the inexperienced maybe trainer, now you're getting a very different experience as that client as well too, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like a lot of that kind of, again, just as you were saying there, with like the people not knowing their why and stuff, and or doing it for the wrong reasons, I feel like it's just social media at the moment, between TikTok and, you know, Instagram going more towards reels. You're literally getting like kind of a 15-second, 20-second kind of glimpse into people's lives without understanding the extremes of bodybuilding or the extremes of doing a photo shoot prep or something like that. But what I find it really interesting is, like, if you click onto your Instagram now, it looks very different to, you know, the average Joe online coach around the place. I notice you don't post a lot of pictures of your physique and stuff like that. So, you know what I mean? Like that's great that you've managed to build something through, you know, not just like clickbait or, you know, people seeing abs and being like, oh, I want that. So how, I suppose, did you get to that? Like, what is your thought process? What do you try to deliver when you're delivering content?
You see, they don't give a shit about my abs, right? That's like really what it boils down to. And, you know, when they see someone, and I've got all those pictures from previous shoots with the chains over the neck and the grr, and like, you know, look at me, I'm awesome. And I'm, you know, deadlifting 250 kilos for 10 reps or doing whatever. And like nosebleeds and popping eyeballs and all this kind of crap. It's like, that is not remotely relatable at all to that individual. You know, where the average person who's coming to me, no one ever like came to me and said like, you know, I want to get dick skin lean, or I want to lift the world or do whatever. It's like none of those people care about that stuff, and they also don't care about me doing it. And this is like where a lot of people struggle to realize that on social media, that they'll put it up and kind of like look for all these likes and stuff. It's like, people don't care. They're too concerned about their own stuff to really care about your own. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like, it's just a fact of it as well too.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, right, who am I dealing with and what's their problems? That's really what I'm looking at in terms of my content, or what I'm looking at with, you know, trying to, and like social media is a difficult one to play. I'm not going to stand there and dance around and do fucking TikTok video. Like, fucking hell. It's like, it's the most disgusting thing in the world. I went on TikTok like a little bit recently, and oh man, it's like, I'm going to get the old man treatment here on this with it, but like, that is the worst place in the world. I couldn't imagine them being on that and doing it. Like, it's just so toxic. But where it's going, it's like, you know, it's all this entertainment and people have to be like entertained all the time. It's like, well, again, that's not the population that I'm really dealing with. They want to know like, okay, how can I feel a little bit better? How can I look a little bit better? How can I incorporate this into my lifestyle? How can I live a normal life and be involved with my family? And that's kind of what I'm going to lean in towards, because again, the 99.9% of people that I have, they're going to be interested in that stuff. And there will be a little bit of like, you know, showing off our own kind of life and stuff like that, because, okay, I'm a dad and I'm running a business, and like, you know, we're busy people doing busy things, but then there has to be that element of balance as well too, besides that. So, you know, it's a very tricky act to balance. But like, when you're just kind of being real and authentic and like, you know, showing your actual life and what people actually want to hear and listen to, it's a little bit easier to curate that content then from that point of view.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned TikTok. So I only started TikTok like 2 weeks ago. I'd never had it before, nothing like that. So I had issues with my skin before. That's why I had to stop bodybuilding. Mad issues. So I downloaded TikTok, literally put up a video, like boomed. Within 2 weeks, I've like triple the followers on TikTok and everything. But it's completely different. Like even like conversion from inquiries from TikTok to Instagram is very, very different. And I think TikTok is like, people are in for those short little clips, as I said, whereas people on Instagram will sit down and watch a 5-minute video of you talking, or they'll watch the stories of you talking to your camera or whatever. But with TikTok, if you don't grab someone in the first 5 seconds, it's gone. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to just scroll. And I feel like that is allowing people to give a very kind of skewed image on, say, like a lot of topics. Like my one is kind of like awareness around steroids and fitness, because I find now with younger people, like with TikTok and stuff like that, it's becoming much more normalized for people to click on and see, you know, this 5-second transformation of a 17-year-old kid who took a cycle test. And it's becoming like, I'm trying to deliver like kind of a positive message on TikTok, but I can also see that how toxic it is.
Is that possible? Is it possible to be positive on TikTok?
I'm trying my best, man, but yeah, it is hard. Like, it's hard.
But think of the audience that you're going to attract then as well. Like, so if you're like, you know, where as bad as Instagram is for instant gratification, think of like the type of user that's going to be there on that. And is that applicable to, now I'm not giving you like marketing insights here on this, but like, is it applicable to the type of people you actually want to attract then as well too? You know, because again, like you get like a much younger market and they're like purely talking about gear and stuff like this and all that as well too. And yeah, of course we can have an influence on that, but it's keeping it relevant to the market that you want to go into as well. And that's why I'll steer clear of TikTok for the most part with it, because it's just not relevant to my niche, I guess, if you want to call it that too, right?
Of course, absolutely. So let me just kind of see a little bit about like your actual day. Like, how does your day look? What kind of routine do you have? I know you have a family, you said, like new baby. Congratulations, by the way. So like, how do you balance that but still be as productive as you are?
There's a bit of a falseness about that like everyone thinks we're like super busy all the time, and we're not, right? But like we're as busy as we want and need to be, but I'm very passionate and like very aware that there needs to be, and I'm probably a little bit too imbalanced from that point of view, because I take a good bit of downtime. I'm making sure that I like have like active engagement in hobbies and activities outside of health and fitness and stuff like that. So I'll, you know, spend a day out fishing probably once a week. I'll spend a couple of hours in the woods twice a week doing archery and stuff like this as well too.
Brilliant.
But my average kind of day, I give you a rundown through it. It does change quite a bit from day to day, but like on a, let's say a busy productive day or whatever, I'm up at like 6 o'clock usually, and it's just when we wake up. We wake naturally at that point, and Ava kind of wakes at that point now as well too. Kate will probably go out and train in the gym for a little bit, or she'll do some stuff, so I'll give her kind of an hour off because she's been up feeding Ava throughout the night and stuff like that. So then I'll hang out with the baby, go down, make some coffee, play with the dog for a little bit, like, and this is like none of this like morning routine where I get up and meditate for 4 hours and like do yoga and all. Like, no one does that shit, by the way, as well too, for anyone listening, right? So it's like, but like people with a real life don't do that. Then like I'll get into work, like as in into work, like I'll start working maybe about 8 o'clock, review a couple of bits and pieces, line that up for the day, and like I generally start kind of around, you know, about 12 o'clock with like proper blocks of work, that little bit more, because I'm a little bit more dialed in as opposed to like just getting stuck into it first thing in the morning. Work straight through to like maybe 8 or 9 o'clock that night with a little bit, and like that's kind of my day in general. Then I'll wind down. If I'm going to train, I'll train earlier in the morning. There's, you know, and then it's like that'll be like for a couple of days of the week where I'm a little bit busier, and then for the rest of it, it's a little bit more flexible. I'd like to think it's kind of my ideal lifestyle that we're kind of living now at the moment, because with being self-employed, yeah, you've got a large control on your time and your availability to be able to disperse your hours throughout the week, but the work still has to get done, right? So it's like 2 weeks ago, brought Kate's dad off to go fishing up in the West for 2 days, but that meant that I had to do like 2 14-hour days before that.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, people think, oh, it's like, look at him, he's off in the West again fishing and doing whatever. It's like, well, you know, I've done 28 hours in like, you know, a couple of days before that. So it's like,
yeah,
you know, there is a price to be paid all the time. If you want to take that time off or want more downtime to do stuff, you still have to get the work done regardless, right? So in those blocks where you're trying to be a little bit more productive, it's just like laying it out and like trimming the fat, as I like to call it, because you're just like getting rid of anything that's not of any benefit or use to your day, and then just like putting in the stuff that needs to be done. I work a lot better under tighter deadlines too as well. So if you give me a little bit of leeway, I'm like, I'll do it later. Right? So I'm not like uber productive, right? I'm not like the Alex Hormozy of the world or anything like that at all.
And it's actually so good and refreshing to hear that, because I think when you're looking from the outside in at people, especially like, as I said, like all these kind of younger generations of online coaches getting into it, it's like there's this thought that you need to be like this bulletproof robot to be able to be successful in the industry.
No, I'll just put a disclaimer there with that, right? I've done that as well too. Like I've been in the sleep when I'm dead crew. So when, particularly in my last prep, I was up at 3:30. And I wasn't in the bed till maybe 12 that night. So it was like, you know, 3-4 hours sleep as a max. And that was like flat out working all day, every single day. So this is why like I probably am a little bit more imbalanced now, because I was up literally the only time I had to fit in more clients was just when I was sleeping. So like, okay, sleep went. So then, you know, we're preaching this health and fitness lifestyle. And like, this is probably why I came to more of a conclusion with that, of to pull back away from it a little bit more. Because, you know, those who I deal with in terms of clients, a lot more of them that are personal trainers have the worst lifestyles you could probably imagine, you know, and this is like where, again, you're on like 7 or 8, maybe 10 coffees a day. And that sounds outrageous to people, but it is a lifestyle for a lot of people.
It's the reality,
you know, and this is like where I was dealing with, probably, to give a bit of context on it, like between 75 and 80 online clients, and then doing about 40 to 50 hours in the gym as well on top of that. So like this was where it was literally like 100+ hours a week. And this was like for a long period of time. And like, I was running absolutely fine. I was able to manage it, but that's because I was like in my mid-20s. I'd literally fall apart if I'd done one day of that so too, right? So there's only a certain time frame you can do it. And like, I don't want to paint that image of like, okay, you know, do 2 or 3 days a week. Now at the minute you'll have a really successful career. You probably won't. That I'm after working to a point now where we can peel it back that little bit more and have a lot more balance. that you need to go through kind of the, I like to call them eat shit phases of your business as well too, where like you just have to put in that extra grind. And then like on the weekends, I was traveling to seminars and events and stuff like that as well too, to get more upskills. So like this is where like it was quite literally nonstop at that point. So, you know, I don't want to give that illusion of do less and get more from it, but like you do have to still put in the graft at that point. And, you know, it's not as easy as Instagram would paint it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose like I was the same with that. Like I said, like when I was getting everything started, it was like crazy hours. But I feel like over time you learn how to manage your time better. You know, you get systems in place, all this kind of stuff. But I feel like for some people that mindset never goes of like, you know, I have to keep doing this if I want to keep being successful, you know. And I think it's only when you step back from that and you kind of evaluate the situation, you can realize how much you're actually missing out of being a normal person and how enjoyable that can actually be. And I suppose just not getting caught up in just, well, obviously, you know, getting it off the ground and all that, but being able to kind of take a step back and just kind of look at things and be like, okay, am I willing to sacrifice, you know, maybe 10 extra clients for being able to spend time with my friends or family and stuff like that. Well, yeah,
it's been okay with those trade-offs is the big thing. And this is like for anything in life, right? So again, those who are dieting and they go to the very extremes of the diet, it's like, okay, what are you willing to trade off? Are you willing to trade off the weekends? Yes or no for that big result? Can you continually do that? Probably not. So this is where having that like maybe periods of time where it's a lot more focused and intense, but then also periods of knowing it's okay to pull back, to have that element of balance, because again, like people's versions of balance is very imbalanced, I think, all the time as well too. So like it's knowing what the trade-offs are, knowing what they're okay with, and that's in business or life or relationships or anything from that point. It's once you're okay with that, it allows you to progress them further then as well too.
Of course. So just back to the routine and the good habits for a second. So I found I've recently swapped from coaching, like say more bodybuilders, more advanced athletes to Gen Pop and you know, just lifestyle clients. And I found with the general population, rather than like, you know, giving them their plan and then expecting them to pick it up from the start, it's more incorporating kind of like good habits slowly into their week and just building from that really. And that, I suppose, is kind of the best way to get them to get that bit of momentum into, you know, being able to advance it a little bit more. What kind of good habits would you recommend for clients like that, you know, to make it a little bit more productive or to get the ball rolling at the start, I suppose? And, you know, if someone is a complete beginner, not used to going to the gym or, you know, whatever, how do you kind of, what are the steps into getting them from there to being able to follow a plan like consistently?
Yeah. So it's always going to be the low-hanging fruit. So like, how easy can we make it to make something stick, right? It is really the biggest thing that you're looking at from that point. So it's like, okay, they'll send you back in a questionnaire, or you look at their lifestyle, or you evaluate the whole thing, and there's like, you know, 20 pages of a questionnaire or whatever, but it boils down to maybe one or two things. And it's looking at what are the major key factors that are going to make them feel as good as physically possible, as quick as possible. And that's probably going to be like looking at their sleep. They want fat loss. Okay, cool. We need to deliver them fat loss. They still need to lose some weight. But how can I get them feeling as good as physically possible? Because again, they'll come in and say, my training's all over the place. My macros need to be fixed. But we really know that it's okay. Your stress management, your sleep are all over the place. How can we fix those? So I'm like looking at, okay, could you pull back an extra half an hour in your nighttime to put in a little bit of a routine and structure with your sleep? Let's say, for example, just your sleep, because I think everyone has pretty poor sleep.
Yeah.
Once you start to improve that, next thing all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, I feel amazing. So, you know, and next thing is like an extra half an hour of sleep or an extra 2 hours sleep, whatever it might be. Once you put in that little bit of a routine, then they get some buy-in, because like this guy's a magician. And like really what you've just said is like, can you get off your phone a little bit at nighttime and just like start to chill out that little bit more? Can you put in like maybe a hobby on the weekend, something like that? And now all of a sudden you're this guru genius, because like I feel amazing, you know, all of a sudden. And now what will I do if I actually couple that up with it? Because they start to arouse this curiosity then as well too. It's like, well, if I feel that good from just changing one thing, what happens if I change another thing? Then like they'll stack it in, they'll you know, habit stacking again. It's a really, really easy thing to do. Maybe that's just getting them out for like a 20-minute walk away from the desk because they're working from home, whatever that might be. And next thing they're outside, they're getting a bit of fresh air, they're getting a bit of sunlight. They feel really, really good as well too, because they're starting to move. And that's really, really easy things to do. It's like, okay, can we put in a half an hour walk, or could we put in an extra half an hour in the nighttime where you start to wind down? And now all of a sudden, they're not like worried about like the percentage of their macros on MyFitnessPal because they're getting so upset about that. they're feeling better. So now they actually adhere to the plan a lot better, or they adhere to the structure that you've put in with nutrition. And now all of a sudden, the friction has been removed, because the underlying thing that was the issue is either the stress management or the sleep has now unlocked the key to like the adherence with the food and the training. And now they're feeling better, so they can train a bit more. And now it's this kind of cascade of things that start to offset that. But it's really because we just picked the lowest hanging fruit. What's the most thing that you can, or what's the easiest thing that you can do right now to improve your health? And they'll do that, not benefiting them at all whatsoever. So it's like, okay, what could you change in your day with your routine that would improve your sleep just a little bit? And now they'll say, well, do you know what? I could probably cut back on that cup of coffee at 5 o'clock. Cool, let's do that. Now they felt that they've made a really positive change. They've taken the power back into their hands, as opposed to Coach Larry or Coach Dave telling them. And now they feel like, well, do you know what? I made that decision, and now I'm going to start making more informed decisions, or I'm going to be more aware, because that felt really good. And now when you've empowered them with that, next thing they'll just start taking control of a couple more things. They'll start saying no to a few more things that they should be saying no to, and start saying yes to a few more things that they need to say yes to. And that's very empowering from that point of view, with when you can let them take control that little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, yeah, just taking those small little wins when you can, because I feel like with especially people who, you know, might not necessarily have had a coach before or are new to the gym, you know, everyone thinks you need to be this motivated person to kind of get into it or whatever. But I feel like motivation is something that kind of slowly creeps up on you when you start to realize that you're good at something. And when you get in and you start doing these small things, as he said, like literally just, you know, getting to bed a half hour earlier, or getting to the gym 3 times a week if you're not used to going at all, that's when, you know, it starts clicking with people. And I find it's kind of usually in the first, it takes people kind of like 4 or 5 weeks sometimes to really see that click and the change in them. And that's when they can kind of start consistently stringing together those good weeks and, you know, just carrying it on from there.
So I'll make that comparison. Sorry to cut across. I'll make that comparison to people that they have created success in some areas of their life, right? Regardless of how big a failure they think they may be with their health and fitness, that they've got very successful relationships. They're maybe dealing with, like, we're dealing with people who are potentially have a little bit more expendable income. So they're probably very good at their jobs and very proficient at their roles that they have. So I look and say, okay, let's say again, someone who is very successful in their job. I'll say, okay, how have you created that success? And now they'll start to tell you all about their job and the blueprint that they've got to be in that position. And I'll say, okay, what parallels can we draw from that to your health and fitness, in terms of saying that, okay, it's taking you a little bit of time to get to where you are, so it's going to take us a little bit of time to get where we want to go with our health and fitness. You'll start off by saying, okay, well, I actually list out my day and I make notes of what I need to do, and I make a structure around my business and my job. Okay, that's what allowed me to be very successful on a day-to-day basis. Okay, can we put some of that structure in around your food as well? Can we put some of that structure in around your training? And now they'll start to draw parallels of all of a sudden, well, I can do this with my job. So now all of a sudden, why can't I do it with this other thing? Because I'll say to people like, okay, I'll get an accountant and they want to start up with me, and they'd say, I just can't do this. It's so hard. I'll say, okay, I'll tell you what I know about accountancy. It's fuck all. And they'll just like, okay, so what do you know about health and fitness? Like, fuck all. Okay, now we both know, but I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you some tools and allow you to upskill yourself. You're not supposed to know about it, even though a lot of people do it. You're not supposed to know everything about health and fitness because you haven't studied it. You haven't given it time. You haven't given it the appreciation maybe it needs. So now they realize that, okay, well, I'm actually a beginner and I need to treat myself like a beginner, as opposed to looking at Joe fitness blogger on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. And it's like, oh, well, I'm such a failure compared to them. It's like, well, if I compare myself and my savings to Elon Musk or whoever is billionaires in the world, it's like, I suck. But it's like, okay, and maybe I can take some lessons from them and learn from that or do whatever. But it's like, if you start comparing yourself to someone that's way up the ladder compared to you, you know, it's going to be a recipe for failure and, you know, not a success at all. So when you can start to peel that back and make them realize, okay, well, I actually am a beginner and I'm supposed to not get all this right straight away. Now you kind of get that white belt mentality and start to learn that little bit more, or engage in the process that little bit more, and understand that it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I've never actually done that, but I'll be robbing it from my consultation calls now. So your actual coaching now, the affiliate program style coaching, like, can you tell me a little bit about that? What's involved? How it's different from, say, normal coaching? And
So we had, when I was going through that phase that we were talking about, doing the million hours a week and stuff like that, we had a waiting list that was about 6 months long. And we had kind of looked at and said, okay, how are we going to deal with this? Because I'm the way I am, I just couldn't say no to people at the time. It's like, yeah, we'll put you on the wait list and it'll open up, but slots just weren't opening up, right? And so we considered, right, how can we cater for that at a lower level of like some coaching, give people a little bit of guidance, give them some structure. So we ended up creating the affiliate. So we still have our one-to-one coaching model that's a lot more bespoke or kind of individual driven from that point of view, where the affiliate is, it's literally 10 times cheaper than the one-to-one, and it's scaled down to a point where you'll get your training, you'll get your nutrition information, you'll get all a whole series of education around that, and then the support and guidance from me on a lower level with that as well too, where we can get people to empower themselves and kind of pull the favor back into their court as well too, where they can have very experienced coaching and training and exercise guidance without the intensity of kind of that one-to-one, because some people just want that little bit of a nudge, a little bit of a steer. Maybe they're not so fully sure about going into more of a one-to-one approach with that as well too. So we operate it where you get monthly updated programs that it keeps things nice and fresh. People want to have alternatives to exercises, not be on the same program for 12 weeks or kind of be hopping around not knowing what to do. Then we have an accountability aspect with our community group as well too, where we hold like weekly threads for accountability and guidance and structure with that as well too. We've got a built-in system in the background for education. It's called macro management, where we kind of teach people about the why, the what, the when, the how with nutrition and how to manage it into their lifestyle, as opposed to this is a carbohydrate and this is your protein. It's like, okay, we build it back to very basic lower levels, because if I can get it across in a communicative way to people that they can understand and not need to ask me any questions on it, I've explained it well enough. If I'm going in and I'm explaining it in such a way that it's creating more confusion around it, and they come back with even more questions, I, as the coach, haven't explained it well enough for them to comprehend and apply it to their life. So there's a big onus on me to make it as simple as possible for people that they can apply it to their health and fitness and their ongoing journey as part of their lifestyle, as opposed to this kind of super intensive thing that they feel they have to do and perfect all the time. So like we kind of create a journey for people that it's like, this is going to be part of your lifestyle. You don't have to be part of it, right? It doesn't have to be the be all and end all from that. And this is where they may only get 2 sessions a week. They may not get any sessions a week, because you're dealing with, again, normal people with real world objections, where some people might be able to do 4 or 5 sessions a week. That's great. That's their lives and what they're dealing with. But we remove that kind of all or nothing mentality with it, where now people can say, well, actually, it's okay that I'm not going to focus on all my training this week. I'm going to focus on the things I have control. Maybe that's my sleep and nutrition. I actually can't get to the gym this week, or I'm going to do a 20-minute session. And again, it's like, it's okay to veer off that path just a little bit as well too. And it keeps them rolling with some accountability that's there from that point too.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. Like, and I suppose, you know, from the outside looking in, people might look at it as, you know, you're not getting as much, but you're, as you said, you're paying a tenth of the price. So, you know, that's absolutely amazing. You can accommodate so many people like that. Do you have like support groups and stuff within that, or is it so?
Yeah, so we've had like a Facebook support community there for that. That's pretty much been running since I went self-employed. So it's about 8 years old, that group is. So pretty much like every day or every second day, I'll be in there posting some information, some clips, some a lot more I'll post in there than I would online. Because that's like, again, I want to make sure that like those guys get looked after, as opposed to me like, over here, come on, new clients, 5 spaces remaining now. You know, it's like, look after the people you have is the best way to make sure your business is successful, as opposed to just continually be looking for new people all the time. Because if I'm not answering questions in there and I'm there 5 slots remaining for the new sign up, it's like, well, that's the shit job, because again, it just shows I don't give a shit about them, right? So I want to make sure I'm very active in there. But there's posts and relevant information on pretty much everything within the health and fitness industry, or kind of generalized lifestyle in there for the last 8 years, which is an awful lot of information. I think I was actually posting in there before I was posting on like Instagram and stuff like that as well too, which is pretty key. So like, again, I just found more value in supporting them, as opposed to, again, just kind of promoting that kind of stuff there too. Obviously there is an element where I have to be there and be present on that to keep the business rolling from that point too. But having that support community, because like people, they don't, when you're trying to do something with the health and fitness industry, or kind of like get into that journey, you're going to be a bit of a black sheep in your community or in your close family, or you're going to be the one that might be a little bit different. And I don't want to make it sound like a bad thing, but your friends and family may not understand why you want to change, or why you want to get stronger, or why you want to get leaner, or why you want to lose some body fat or gain some muscle, or whatever it might be. So having an environment or community with like-minded people to support that journey, that are on the same path or similar paths, or have done that journey before, that's really, really key. Because, you know, Like typical example, Irish mothers are like the most detrimental thing for fat loss you will ever come across in the whole world. Like worse than any like toxic food group that you'll ever come across, because they'll be like, ah, you'll have another, and here's a big cake, and here's what you all this crack, and everyone is like laughing thinking about that. But like Irish mothers are great for business because they're not helping anyone lose weight, right? So it's like, but they'll say like, oh, you're getting a bit skinny, or geez, you're after getting put on a bit of weight or whatever, or you're grand, you don't need to be going to the gym all the time. And it's like, well, you know, having that support where it's actually with like-minded people can allow you to maybe express how you're feeling or what you're thinking, or maybe get that little bit of education around it all, because chances are your staff you work with in your office or whatever, there's donuts on Friday, there's pizza Thursdays, you're out in the piss, you're doing whatever, you're going to be living a little bit of a different lifestyle to them perhaps. So it's having that network of people around you that can support it can be really, really key.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, yeah, the support there, I think for a lot of people who are starting off when they don't have like friends and stuff, like it's important to be able to, you know, share your victories, share your struggles with someone, and for them to be able to kind of get it. And I think that's what turns a lot of people off, is kind of, you know, they go on and they try to do it on their own, then they're walking into a new gym, they don't know anyone, they're not familiar with the machines and all this, and you know, it can become very overwhelming very fast. So yeah, just everything after saying there is brilliant. And you know, I think that I would imagine in the like coming years, there's going to be a lot more of that going around, because with online coaching becoming more and more popular, like it's nearly trendy now to have an online coach, you know.
But there's a thing, like when you go into gyms now again, and like when there's a couple of like large commercial style gyms, right? You'll go in, you'll swipe in with your bank card or whatever the thing, or you'll beep at the desk and it'll let you in through the turnstile. You no longer actually have an interaction with people on the gym floor, because you're going in with your headphones on, your bag over your back, you're sipping your coffee or pre-workout or doing whatever. And it's like, beep, you go in. Where it used to be, there could be 4 or 5 people at the desk. You go in, you have a chat, you have a bit of, there's just still some gyms that do that. They do it very, very well. And trainers who are looking to expand their client base do that as much as physically possible, chat to people when they're coming in. But usually what it is now, it's an unmanned gym that you're going to, and you swipe your card, you go in, and you actually, there could be 100 people there, but not, it's like a silent disco. Do you ever see that? Like where people are going around with their headphones on, they're just doing their own thing. No one interacts, bar like nodding, like, you know, finish with this or whatever. And that's it. And that can be a completely weird and alien environment as well too, where you don't have maybe a trainer to go up to ask a question, or the trainer's too busy chatting up some young one in the squat rack, or they're playing with their phone, or, you know, thinking about their own workout or doing whatever. And like, it's a major problem as well too, because they just don't have that outlet of being able to say to someone, is like, how do I use this machine, or how do I do this, or this is, you know, I'll just go hide in the corner and not do anything over here kind of thing, or walk on the treadmill for a bit because of X, Y, and Z that's happening over there. And that can be a very intimidating environment. And when you can break down those barriers with the support as well, it's really, really key.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find with your, like, what would your retention be like with an affiliate client compared to like a one-on-one client? Do you feel like they stay in for longer or shorter?
Yeah, like, so the kind of average is about a year that people will stay, kind of 10 months to a year with the affiliate.
Wow.
And it can be like, where the one-to-one, we kind of look at that like 3-month minimum commitment, because again, it can be a little bit more of a goal-driven outcome they're looking for, where they may need, like, I've got one-to-one clients that are there for 5 years plus, and I've got like some that are only new in the door as well too, and that. But like for the average, you're probably looking at about a year as well there with the one-to-one. So it is a very similar, because you're painting, and not from like a business point of view, but just from an honesty point of view, that if you've gone 10 miles into the woods, you have to come 10 miles to get back out of it as well. So when you have someone coming in that has maybe an impaired relationship with food or exercise, or needs to lose a lot of body weight, or want to gain a lot of muscle tissue, whatever it might be, we have to be realistic and say, we can't do that in 28 days. We're not going to give you some 6-week rapid transformation. This is what it's actually going to take. Here's hundreds of examples of people who have done it, and the length of time it's taken them, as opposed to this one genetic outlier who just got shredded and put on loads of muscle or whatever. So there is a point of honesty that comes with that as well too, of playing the long game and like being very open and honest with people about their journey. Some people will say, well, I want to do it quicker. And I'll say, well, sorry, we're not the people for you with that as well too, because we're going to be honest. Come back to me in 6 weeks when you don't get the results that you want with that, and then we'll sort you out. But for now, maybe it's not the right journey for you. But when you look at that, it's being honest as a coach and being open with people as well, to say, like, listen, that's not the service we provide. It's more long-term approach, more sustainable. And, you know, if someone says sustainable in 6 weeks and the same thing, it's like, well, that's a bit of a conflict of interest, right? Too. It's not going to, it's not working, right? So again, there tends to be a longer retention because they're also looked after very well too. It's not just a case of you're a number and you come in and out.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to, I just wanted to ask about this, like, so with people who say, you said they might come in and they don't have that support network around them, like, how do you get people to understand that it's okay to prioritize themselves? Like, what way would you kind of break that down for people? And, it's okay to step out of this, what's trendy, or, the small town mentality, I suppose, of Ireland, of going out drinking every Saturday night. Like, how does that conversation look?
It's a very simple question. It's like, how's it working out for you currently? And this is like, people come in and say, well, I want to lose weight, but I still have to go out on the weekend and, go on the pace with lads. And it's like, that's not going to happen. And it's just being, again, honest and open with people to say, like, what you're currently doing is not working and it needs to change. And I provide something that's probably going to improve that dramatically. And that's up to you then. So, like, again, like, you can't force people into change. You can't force people to, you say, like, oh, get rid of all your toxic friends and stop drinking and doing all that. It's like, well, they're not just going to sit in on a Saturday night and count their macros and look at my fitness pal for the week and stuff like that as well too, right? So when we can actually say, well, actually, okay, I want you to take a little bit of control back. Could we cut it back from 10 drinks to 6 or 5? You still go out, you still do your thing, but I need you to, actually look and consider yourself first and put yourself first and say that, am I doing what is best for myself to make me feel better? Or am I just trying to be a people pleaser and a yes man or a yes woman with stuff like that? And, again, when you'll say that very briefly to them, it's like, how is what you're currently doing serving you well? Is it improving your sleep? Is it improving your lifestyle? Is it improving you and your job and your baseline and your relationship with your friends and family and kids? No, it's not. So next thing, something has to change. And people will have that kind of moment, mightn't be straight away, but they'll be like, do you know what? I need to change this right now because there is a big aspect of that needs to be looked at from people. And until they do, change is ultimately not going to happen. You might lose a little bit of weight, but you're still going to be in the same shitty surroundings and environment and that too. So it just doesn't serve you.
Of course. And when would you draw that line with someone? Because obviously people have stuff that comes up, birthdays, social events, that they just have to go to. When would you draw the line and have that conversation with a client?
It's creating autonomy in their approach and say, okay, what do you feel is best for you to do this weekend? And if they say, well, I'm going to absolutely rip the arse out of it and go nuts, it's like, cool, you have that, but here's the consequences of that. I'm not threatening them, but I'm just going to say, over the last 3 months, you've done this 5 or 6 times, and this has been the outcome from it. How is it going to be different this time? You said you wanted this result. Maybe do we need to outline different goals? Do we need to reset that as well too, because your actions aren't in line with that? Or is say, okay, we need to maybe stretch that out that little bit longer for that goal, or we need to reassess it? Or again, what's negotiable and what are you comfortable with doing that they feel, okay, Larry hasn't, because the second you kind of tell them, I don't want you to drink this weekend, first thing they're going to do is, I want to drink this weekend. So it's like, okay, if I can say what's negotiable for you, what do you feel you can handle most? And they'll say, okay, I'm going to maybe cut back some calories Monday to Friday, and I'm going to have more protein and veggie on the weekend, and then I'm just going to backload my calories into my carbohydrates over the weekend as well too with that. Go out and have a nice few drinks. Cool.
Of course.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And now they've taken control back and they feel empowered with that as well too, as opposed to me, no, you can't do that, bold client. Because that doesn't work, right? So there's resistance and friction there. Again, I'm going to give them the power back into their hand to make an informed choice and decision, but I'm also going to make them aware of the outcomes that will be there from that should they wish to go a bit more YOLO.
Yeah. And it's such a better approach, I find, with people, because you're not only, as you said, not restricting them, but you're also giving them the tools to be able to handle this when they're not a client of yours. If I want to go out on the weekend and have a few drinks, but not, put on 4 pounds and undo like the last week's work or whatever, that you're empowering them. And I think it's very important for coaches and stuff like that to have the ability to do that rather than just say, go do this, to be able to, just give them the tools to be able to handle it themselves and not be reliant on them coaching you or be getting coached by you forever.
Yeah. And this is what I'll say this to my one-to-ones, and I'll say, okay, if you're committing to 12 weeks, and we're going to do 3 months of this, right? That if you get to week 13 and you don't know what to do, once you finish coaching or you park it there, that's cool. But if you get to week 13 and you don't know what to do, that's a major failure on my behalf, because I haven't given you the tools or skill sets. And it's not on me to say, well, you fucked up and it's your fault, pay me for another 12 weeks and I'll show you again. That's not coaching. So coaching is for me that I can get someone to week 13 and they know what to do. They know how to control their approach. They know how to control their environment. I'm not going to be able to give them all the tools in that time frame because it's not realistic, but they should have enough in their skill sets that now they can make more informed decisions for themselves, that they can take that control and power back. I'd much prefer someone to lose 10 pounds or 5 pounds or no pounds and understand that over the 12 weeks, as opposed to losing 40 pounds and putting it back on within 3 weeks after that, because that's a major failure, right? So if I get the successful transformation, that means that they're able to sustain that journey for the long road. So that's really like, there's the before and after, and then there's the after. And that's something I spoke about earlier with my client that I posted about earlier on the photo shoot. But now he's 6 weeks post shoot and he's still in the same condition, and he's on way more calories and he's in way more control. Feels great. That's the important thing. It's like after the transformation or whatever you do with people, that they're able to sustain that journey as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to wrap up the show with a question. There's just for anyone, the audience who might be listening to, who's either getting into health and fitness or thinking about hiring a coach or anything, what do you feel like is a big part? Like, what do you feel like being on the other side of it and seeing people coming through? Like, what changes? What's the biggest change you see in people when they take that step, and in the first couple of weeks, like how do they change as a person? What does it unlock? Because I feel like a lot of people, it's only when they start online coaching or something, they're like, wow, this is actually unreal. But it takes them like going and inquiring and signing up to kind of have that click.
It'll take people a long time to actually sign up, right? Because something has to happen that creates this catalyst that they will say, fuck this, I've had enough, I need to contact Dave or Larry, I need some help. And that's a big it's a big thing for people, because now they've admitted that they need a bit of a hand or a help. They're not just going to sign up to coaching on a whim and just be like, do you know what, I feel a bit fat today, I need some coaching. It's not going to be that they have to get to a point of where they're just not happy enough. I'm not saying everyone is depressed or unhappy. Some people just want to train and have a bit of structure with it. That's cool. But they have to get to a point that there needs to be some change. And then they're almost feeling at their worst when they come to you, and it's something I'll have is very, with guys particularly, it's like they'll inquire, they're in their mid-30s and they're 99 kilos. They're afraid of their life to go over the 100 kilos because now they think it's like this change, this catalyst that again is driving it. So that's a big driver. You'll have a lot of women that are coming back in. It's like, oh, well, I'm now back up to a size 16. I've never been here in my life. I'm normally a size 12 and I need to get back to that point. Or something has happened. There's some catalyst of that has really made them say, holy shit, I've had enough. So they're not going to know how good they feel until they actually feel it. And you can't describe that to people. You can't explain like you're going to feel amazing, because they've no concept of that. It's much like when you get super lean for the first time. It's like, well, you've no idea because you've never been there before. So you have to be able to paint that journey and kind of break it down in a step-by-step fashion of creating those smaller wins, as opposed to like they don't know what it feels like to be 20 kilos lighter, or maybe they do, and it's a very, very distant memory from them as well too. So you got to paint that in a very careful way, because it can overwhelm people, and like, they're kind of waiting for this like magic to unlock all of a sudden. And it's a very vague answer I'm giving, but it's unfortunate that like it just is the case with that it's not something you'll feel or understand till you actually get to that point of it as well too. But it's again creating those small wins where you will feel better and you will have more focus and you will have more drive. And like I'll say this to people all the time, that don't be surprised in like 12 weeks if you're after getting a bit of a promotion in work, or you're after getting, your quality of your relationships with your friends and family improve as well too. Because now it's not just like calories and macros and sets and reps. You're now far more focused and driven in just general aspects of your life, because you put more routine and structure around it all. And they'll come back and it's like 10 or 12 weeks later, it's like, I got a raise in work, or I got a promotion, or after stepping up the ladder. And it's like, I didn't realize this was going to happen. I just thought it was going to be fat loss. And not that I'm a business mentor, or not that I'm like a, career or relationship guru or anything like that. But it's like when you give people that energy and momentum and clarity, that now they're able to apply it to all other areas of their life as well too. So that's like a key aspect as well too that you can look at. Does it happen all the time? Not at all. We can't say results are guaranteed, because obviously still an element of work that has to be done with it, and a still level of honesty that we have to have from coaches' point of view, and say, well, actually, this may not happen. It's not transactional. You don't pay me money and I hand you abs. or happiness or whatever it might be. So again, you have to lay it out very clear for them that they can understand it. A bit of work has to be done here. I've gone 5 miles into the woods. I need to come 5 miles to get back out. But again, here's the journey that we're going to do. And this is hopefully how I'm going to feel after it.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant answer, Larry. So I'm going to wrap it up on that note. Just before we go, would you like to plug your socials where people can find you?
You won't find me on TikTok, even though I do have an account. But I'm on Instagram. It's Larry_Doyle_coaching. I think it is actually, because it's you never look up your own thing with it.
Yeah.
My website, larrydoylecoaching.ie. You'll find out all about the affiliate our coaching products and the services and our testimonials and stuff there as well too. We've got our podcast. I'm thinking about reviving it. I'm not sure just yet, the Gen Pop podcast. But on socials, like, shoot me a DM. Like, people think, you know, they can't contact you or reach out with this, that you're too busy. I've just already given the ghost away that I'm not that busy, that I'm more than accessible as well too. So maybe if I'm out fishing or doing some archery, I might be able to get back to you straight away. But at the most time, I am very accessible. So anyone that wants to chat or reach out, feel free to shoot me a DM anytime on Instagram.
Perfect. Larry, thank you so much for taking the time to have this episode, and yeah, tune in for the next one.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Dave.